Good evening. Welcome back into my kitchen, as always. Today we are going to do up a pretty darn quick dinner. With the time change, it's absolutely pitch black outside at 5:30, which is miserable and sucks. So we're going to do a fall-style dish. As you can see, I've got every ingredient laid out in front of us. It is a plantain skillet with sausage, apples, and obviously an onion. So fairly straightforward recipe. Fry our sausage. We're going to pull it out of the pan. That sausage fat's going to sit in the pan and help us fry up the onion, the plantains, and then the apples. We'll supplement with a little butter as needed. I got some cinnamon. We'll throw some cinnamon and chili powder on top. Salt, pepper as needed. Again, you don't want to put salt and pepper in to start because sausage has salt in it by default, and you don't want to oversalt your dish. That said, I'm going to do some of our cutting beforehand, some of our cutting while it's going on. So we're going to start, I'm going to dice up my onion. I can hear someone else's car alarm going off. For once, it's not mine. Quickly double check, it's still not mine. So I am dicing this onion first because it does help the dish, the whole dish goes fairly quickly. Depending on how you do this, you can definitely just kind of start your first ingredient and then pretty much as each next one finishes up, you move on to the next. So as an example, we are going to do the onion, but you definitely can start your sausage first. I'm just doing the onion now because I want to watch my sausage and break it up a little more. This onion is, of course, being a pain to peel. This really is the ratio I like. You can do a little more plantain, you can do a little more onion. The original recipe that I used as my base had a lot less apple. I really like apples, so more apples it is. That recipe also didn't call for the chili powder, but I like it with a pinch of spice, and I'm not using a spicy sausage. You definitely, instead of chili powder, could just use like a chorizo to start with. So our onion, we're gonna dice like medium. I'll call it, 1/3 of an inch, roughly a centimeter. Don't have to be exact. This is also definitely a dish you could do like over an open campfire. So there's really no exact science here at all. I took it from a paleo recipe book. So not only was there no science in it, there was also like no calorie counts or anything else because apparently that's against paleo. I didn't know this, but it is. So I'm going to flip the cameras because all the interesting things from here on out are probably going to happen on the stove. We're going to turn on the heat. Move the microphone so you can keep hearing me. And we are going to start frying our sausage. We're going to brown the sausage all over. And once it's brown, we're going to just pull it aside and put it in a bowl. Add our onion to the fat that's in the pan. While the onion is cooking, we're going to slice our plantain. Easy, right? This is a one pot, one cutting board recipe. So technically it could be one knife, but I don't want to take the knife with raw meat and put it in vegetables and then put it back in raw meat and But if you didn't need the knife to open your container of sausage, it'd be a one knife meal too. Make sure I get all my sausage in. This is pork sausage. As I said before, you could use whatever variety of sausage makes you feel good. Maybe a spicy chorizo. I made it with Italian sausage a couple times and wasn't overly a fan, but you know, you do you. Quick wash my hands. Again, I don't want raw sausage all over my kitchen. That's kind of gross. Turn my heat on, turn my fan on so that I don't set the smoke alarm off. If you'll notice, I am using a stainless steel pan. This is great because I don't have to worry about what cooking implements I use on it because it's, you know, not non-stick, so there's no special coatings. I'm going to smash this apart into a few pieces here. And we'll go from there. It's really not a complicated meal, which is great. And like many of the recipes I like to cook, this is an additive meal, which means I try not to really get rid of any ingredient. You know, I might pull it out of a pan, but I'm throwing it back in. In this case in particular, we are keeping the fat from the sausage, which is going to be great. Adds a lot of good flavor. And well, why would I remove fat to put in some other oil? For my own sake here, we're going to switch sides. I need just a little more room and I don't have it going the other way. And we're going to cook this sausage all the way through. I want it to get no longer any pink anywhere. That's going to really release all of the fat inside of it, which I'm hoping to use to cook our onions. Looking right now, I'm probably going to add a little bit of butter to the pan for the onions. And it's fresh stick of butter time. Now this recipe on the whole can get made like 3 different ways. I use plantains. You can definitely use a sweet potato instead, or you could use a butternut squash. I don't like the taste with regular potatoes. I've tried it. And then on the apples, I use a Granny Smith. You could use maybe something closer to a Golden Delicious. Whatever you do, don't use a Macintosh apple. Like that's... Macintosh apples are actually bad apples for bad people. Friends do not let friends use a Macintosh apple. Our sausage looks fully cooked here. Remember, we are going to be throwing this back in the pan for maybe, maybe not quite cooked, for another minute or 2 at the very end. So like, it doesn't need to be super, super perfect. It's going to get a little more cooked. But you obviously want to make sure there's no more pink. I try and make sure it's nicely crumbled at this point. You're going to be eating this with like a spoon or a fork, and your other largest piece will be your slices of plantain. So you're going to want to think through how large your plantain is and make sure your sausage isn't any bigger. But I'm just pulling this out now. I'm not being super careful about draining it or anything else. This is all going back in the pan at the end. As you can see, there's some oil in my pan, but not a ton. I am going to add in some butter. And even if a couple pieces of sausage are left behind, that's kind of whatever. Like, you'll have a couple pieces that are a little more brown than the rest. I'm going to start with a tablespoon and a half to 2 tablespoons. As soon as our butter finishes melting, I'm going to throw in the onions. The onions are going to bring up most of the fond that's on the bottom of the pot here. The water that's inside of them will help that out. If it's really sticking at the end of the onions, I'm going to throw in a tablespoon of water to do the same thing. see if I get the awesome sound here. Yeah, that's the noise. That's what tells me the pan's hot. Put in the rest of my onion. Gonna actually turn my heat down a pinch here. Do this. I'm gonna let them steam a pinch. That's gonna help release what's on the bottom of the pan. While that's going on, I'm gonna peel my plantains. And then I'll pull the lid off, and from that point on, we won't do any more of that steam thing. If your plantains are fairly ripe, your peel comes off very easily. The riper your plantain is, the sweeter it is. I don't want them to be too sweet. You can see there I'm doing knives to cut my peel into thirds. I have found that really helps me get them to peel down. And if there are any real black spots, you want to take them off. And if you notice, those slices are not all the same size, that's okay. Gonna throw a pinch of extra liquid in the pan. Unlike usual, I am gonna use water. I don't really want wine flavors or anything else. If you notice, it was 2 ice cubes. Just enough water that I can get most of the fondue off the bottom and get it onto the tops of my onions. And as soon as my 2 little ice cubes have melted, I'm going to throw my plantains on the top and let this get back up to temperature. Again, our only real goal here is I want to get that fondue off the bottom. That fondue is all of the various reactions that happen as things brown. It's a ton of your flavor. Leaving it in your pan is like, well, it's a crime against God and man. So I'm going to let this get right back up to temperature as I go and grab my plantains. Probably going to throw, actually I'm going to throw on the bottom of this a little more butter. One more tablespoon of butter. That's going to just be under the plantains. Plantains do tend to soak up fat, much like the onions do. And if you looked over at my pan over there, there's a ton of plantains. Plantains are in the same family as banana. They're a lot more starchy. They're in this case, kind of serving like a potato would. In a lot of restaurants, you'll see things like deep fried plantains. We're what? 20 minutes in, and we are through more than half of our cooking. We have a couple things. So we have to cook these plantains all the way through. They don't taste very good raw. I don't remember if they're like bad for you, but they certainly don't taste good, and that's just as bad. Once the plantains are most of the way cooked, I'm going to add the apples, give them a minute or two. We're going to add in a little bit of cinnamon, a little bit of chili powder, give that 60 seconds, throw our sausage back in, and then we're going to plate and serve this because I'm really hungry. If you're looking at the top where I'm doing my slicing, I'm thinking about the apple pieces in the same way that I thought about these plantain slices. I'm going to make sure they are smaller than the plantain pieces. They're going to be closer in, I think, size to the onion than the plantain. I'm continuing to stir this fairly frequently because I don't want my plantains to accidentally stick to the bottom of the pan, because that's a pain. It's starting to smell really good. I'm not sure how well it's coming across on the camera, but your way to tell your plantains are starting to cook is they actually turn this darker yellow. In a lot of ways, they start to look almost translucent. That's a really good sign that your plantains are getting cooked. And for obvious reasons, I prefer them cooked. I am watching. If I think the pan gets too dry, I'm going to throw a little oil in at this point. But yeah, really, we're just going to try and get these plantains 80% of the way cooked before we throw in the apples. The apples release a lot of water, which steams and helps them kind of cook through, but doesn't provide the same flavor that that little bit of browning does when you're frying it on the pan. You can actually see some of our plantain pieces are starting to lose a little bit of their structural integrity. They're getting much softer. Again, that's a good sign that they are starting to fry up and cook. I'm going to give these maybe 30 more seconds, and then we are going to add pinch oil and our apples, along with our cinnamon and our chili powder. All right, starting to throw in our apples. I kind of like the green skin of a Granny Smith apple. I think it makes the dish look better. You know, a good gala or something red might also do the same. I wouldn't really recommend a yellow apple because then this kind of becomes like super monochromatic. And you know, we eat with our eyes on top of eating with, you know, the rest of us. Pinch of oil. Again, the plantains absorb a ton of oil when they cook. Work on our cinnamon and chili powder. I'm using an ancho chili powder that's not super spicy, give or take half a teaspoon. I'm measuring with the lid because I'm a daring person. Cinnamon, quarter to a half a teaspoon. Again, I'm not really measuring. I'm a daring human being. I'm going to put this much in. I'm going to stir it up, see what it looks like, and decide if I want to put more in. Poke it while my apples are starting to get nice and hot. That's what I'm looking for. I want them to be just a pinch crispy still. I don't want them to fully soften. If they fully soften, I mean, that's okay, but that's not just quite what I'm going for. I'm going to add back in our sausage. We're going to stir this all together. We're going to give our sausage 60 seconds to get back up to temperature, because I like my sausage to be, you know, hot. That's also 60 more seconds, which our apples will be cooking. And then this whole thing's ready. That's it. We're done. Um, I've grabbed a pinch of parsley from my porch. We're going to dice that up and throw that on top of the dish for my bowl so that it looks really good when I plate it and serve it. But we're done. This is cooked. This is it. Nothing else. Nice and easy, right? Gonna turn off the heat. Remember, this dish is really hot, so your apples are going to kind of continue to cook as you plate or otherwise bring it out to the table. So again, you want to make sure you don't overdo the apples. That's like the biggest problem you can have. I'm going to grab my microphone back. We're going to dice up our parsley. Again, as I said, this is fresh from my garden. I guess I call it a garden. It's like 6 plants on my balcony. Adds a pinch of flavor, adds a little bit of fresh look color, pops a little bit. We'll do our first 2 pieces. We'll see how much I need. If I need more than that, I did grab another one. By the way, parsley grows like super fast. Just ran my dishwasher, so I have nice bowls to use. I'm gonna fill this about 3/4 of the way up. We're gonna do that. I've got some fresh bread to go with it, and I'm gonna eat dinner. And I don't know what y'all are gonna do, but I'm gonna enjoy it. Carefully pick out the right one so it looks really good for you guys. Take just a little bit of this. Sprinkle it over the top. Grab my little loaf of Italian bread. I bought this. I don't normally bake my own bread. It's a lot of work for honestly not a ton of reward compared to a good baker. So this is Italian bread, a couple nice slices. Got something to go with it. And with that, we're done. So that's what? 32 minutes from start to finish. So just under 30 if you're doing it at home and not trying to narrate your own life. I hope you enjoyed it. And if nothing else, I will see you next Sunday. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday evening.